Hello, this is Lill and welcome to my channel. I just want to say at the start, super thank you everyone that has been watching, commenting, liking, sharing, popping by, tipping, boosting, and now even the banner on Odyssey. Super thank you everyone. It's been so cool. Let's get back to the video. So this is gonna be a little bit of a different episode. So earlier on one of the other chats that I had about setting borders, I asked a question about what kind of topic did people want to hear. And some people said like, oh yeah, I can't remember exactly the wording, but it was something about dating or online dating or something like that. So just thinking like, maybe that would be a fun thing to cover, but I didn't know how that will end up, but I was thinking, might as well try. And it's only gonna be from one point of view, and it's not gonna necessarily work for all types of people, in both the one that trying to meet up with people and the one that is receiving. So take it as a grain of salt. Also, I have no education in this, so yeah, don't trust what I'm saying. It's just see it as point of view. So yeah, so let's just get through it. So one of the first things that you could try is the typical online dating profile places. So I don't know how that website is anymore, but one site that I tried that seemed pretty solid at that time at least was called OkCupid. And in that website, and at least at that time, you could write like a profile, and you could also do a questionnaire if you wanted to, where you did like, I totally agree to this, or I disagree with this, or I kinda agree, I'm neutral to this. And there would be different types of questions. So some questions would be political, some question would be relationship-y, wise, some would be what kind of interest you have, some would be like outdoorsy stuff, and yeah, different things. And you didn't have to answer all the questions if you didn't want to. You could like choose like just a couple. But the more questions you answered, the more other people could match towards you. So say that someone would do the same type of questions, then you could see if you matched percentage by like if you had the same answers on that kind of question. And another thing, so if you checked on someone else's profile, you couldn't see someone's answer on the different questions unless you answered the question yourself. So sometimes it would be like, oh, I wonder what someone says about this one. And then you clicked on it and then you answer yourself, and then you saw the answer what the other one had written on something. But you could always, at any time, I think you could just say like, I don't want to show this question public or something like that. So you could say like, I don't want anyone to see this, what I answered here. But it was an interesting way of seeing what kind of people had the different opinions and like, yeah, what you had in common and stuff like that. But there's at least one thing that I noticed though. Even if you have really high percentage and match with someone else, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good match, because being too similar can also cause some problems. If you're bad in the same things, you're both is gonna be bad in the same things. And it's gonna be like harder to get out of that if you actually want to be different. It's not gonna make you more outdoorsy, for instance, if you are matched with someone that's also not outdoorsy. So yeah, but it's interesting because you can always see what other people have answered on the different things. So you could say, oh yeah, I see. This one has not this or whatever. But I mean, like it's a good conversation starter as well. I was thinking, and also you had the typical, where you could write your profile. When it comes to messaging, I noticed something that constantly happened when I tried it, and it was people that just started the message with like, hey baby, nice pics, or like, I like your pics, And when you get only messages like that is just short and they really don't contain anything, it just blends with everything else. and it doesn't really catch your attention. I think you might see like the profile of who's there, and maybe you would click the profile, but it's at least it's a little bit less intriguing when someone just says something like that, because it doesn't say anything about the person. And I guess the feeling that you think that the person has at least read your profile would be a plus, because it would show that they would actually take time off and invest in the message that they sent. So if they had commented on something, of course, I don't know how all people react to this, but for me, I would say it's a plus. Like maybe you have something in common, and that could be a conversation starter. So at the start, when you're thinking about sending a message, do dare to ask, but choose wisely what you say. This message is actually quite important, and possibly that could be a life-changing moment for each of you. I would recommend starting with something that she writes in the profile. Do you have anything in common? It is going to be an investment for your future, and you do want to get it right, so communication is key. Also, another thing, when you send a message to someone, you can probably guarantee that she will check out your profile if she is considering you. So if you have anything on your profile that is contradicting in the way that you're talking, in how you act, if you have anything super crude or something like that in the profile, she will draw conclusions from what is on the profile. But I would actually recommend writing things in the profile, because it does say something about you. And if you don't have anything on your profile, you might run the risk that you'll just be put on the side and not get a message back. You should definitely tell the truth though, and show who you really are. If you're selling a personality that you aren't, there is probably not a good thing for both you or the person that you're trying to talk to in the long run. It's also important to know that people are different. And for instance, when you're going to try to figure out how the person is, how you act towards each other, and if you generally match in the way you are. But that would probably come pretty fast though. Like for instance, you would want to have genuine interest on both parties. If you read their profile, you might also see how they are as a person a little bit, so then you can more easily connect with the person in that way. Maybe some people want to meet right away, maybe some people want to be chatting online a bit, maybe some people want to do something online, like for instance playing a game online, or if they're not gamers, maybe they could do other online stuff. Maybe there's a drawing together app, or online card or board game. For instance, I know one thing that some people do is they just find like an online places where you can just make a free account and then like just anything. Or maybe she just wants to meet right away, but it's a suggestion, I guess. You do want to break the ice though, having a laugh or a chat. If you do events like this, it also makes you easier to trust, and you can show your personality through action. But yeah, at least then you will have a little bit of a start. And you can always like see what works with the other person, but it's good to be able to suggest, so you are taking the initiative. Most girls and women like confidence, so dare to make the suggestion to meet. But be sure to have no pressure though. It's totally fine if she wants to wait. Maybe she can suggest a place so she feels more safe during the meeting, because it's gonna erase your chance for a yes. But you can question if she wants to still hang out. Usually a public place is considered a good place to start though. Maybe you can offer an ice cream at the docks, or a coffee or tea in a cafe, just chatting. When you're meeting though, read the room and notice the reactions. Is it chill or a relaxed feel? Is it tense? Do you have to fill the air with words? Or is it silence just fine? People are different, and sometimes you'll just have to find out as you meet the person. If you're the only one talking, you could ask questions too, and listen. Maybe you got comments or follow-up stories or questions from what she says. Jokes can be good too, but I guess you'll kinda have to figure out what the type of person's humor is. There's a lot of girls, they do like the initiative, but they do also have to be a bit careful, because there's a couple of things that are important when we as females are on websites like this or something like that. Because of the physical differences of male and females, we have to be a bit more careful. So I know it's a little bit weird, but we have to be feeling safe to be able to like meet people and stuff like that. Also, it could be good to suggest like a webcam session or phone call or something like that, so you kind of hear or see the person a little bit before you meet up. There was this video that I saw once about someone that was making a little bit fun of how females act and how men act when like someone random on the street was just trying to shake hands with people. And all the guys, they just shook his hand back even though they didn't know the person. And all the females just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then they would be like, you know, almost do the opposite, like take their hands like really close to them and like, you know, almost going backwards. And I think there's a reason for this though, because often females are a little bit more vulnerable, and if someone does this on the street, it could be like someone that has stalked them or, you know, have ill intentions. But for guys, it's more like, you know, it might not be that intimidating. Of course, like, people are different, and I'm not gonna put everyone in one box, but it's generally how things are. And I don't think that's necessarily anything that's meant mean, that they didn't go for the handshake. It's just a way of precaution, I guess. And this kind of blends into another aspect of why females might be a little bit more careful when it comes to dating, or at least some. It is because, say that you're female that are in 20, 30 or whatever, right? So they will automatically have to think a little bit also true if they want kids, because that window of having kids is not that long actually, or like I guess they are pretty much, but the problem is that if you're dating, you have to think that you're gonna meet that person, you're gonna have to see if this person is a potential partner, which might be like 4 or 5 years until you actually understand how this partner is. Because at the start of dating, you never really know the person until you had your first little mini fight, you know, some sort of conflict. And a lot of the times people are on their best behavior at the start because they kind of want to show the best of themselves, and at the end they get more and more how they really are. Same thing if you're moving in together and stuff like that. People might be different if you're actually living together 100% of the time. Maybe some people need more alone time, and maybe some people change because of that if it's too much. Another thing about that though is that, so say things are not really going well after those 4 or 5 years, then technically she would have to try to start again, and that would be another 4 to 5 years. So the window of having kids is actually not that long if you consider the time period that you have to spend with the person until you understand how the person is. Of course, it's different for people that doesn't want children, but this can change as you go along. Maybe that's something you see more when you get older. It's important to talk about what is important to you and the other one. And it's good to ask about them first, as that is to show interest and empathy. So then talk about what's important to her and then you as well. You need to show genuine interest though in what's mentioned, and also notice if you get the same back, because it's important that it's not a one-way thing. You don't want to be ending up in a relationship where you feel like you're the only one giving and you never really get any emotional support back and stuff like that. This is a thing that's about communication. And it's important to think that no one is a mind reader. You have to communicate what's wrong. You have to communicate what could be possibly better. But that's also very important to say in a very nice way, in a very positive way, because the moment you say it in a nagging way or a aggressive way, it's not gonna actually get you where you want. It's just gonna cause more division or a defensive reply. So the way you go about it is just with a good mood, then like say like, oh yeah, I was thinking about something, and maybe have some setting where you had some snacks or good food, or like, and then show that it's not dangerous or like a bad situation. It's pretty calm. And it's good with trying to find a middle ground so everyone feels like it's all right. Also, there's another thing that it's good to have a margin of error when it comes to communication, because sometimes people can just forget and they don't necessarily mean something bad about it. And this would probably happen on both ends. Maybe someone forgets to do something or say something or whatever, and like, oh yeah, sorry. Like, but don't make a fuss about it. And the same thing for the other person. They shouldn't make a fuss about it. But like, it's good to have the communication. When you're about to try to meet the person and understand who they are, you can explain what a typical day would be like if you are with each other. Like, this is a little bit later when you actually have met the person, maybe, or something. And maybe you can bring up the different interests or the same interests that you have and what you can do together and stuff like that. It's also important to talk about how you like your day. What's a comfortable way of spending time together? Do someone need more alone time than others? Time for friends, life goals? Say that some people would be too obsessed and maybe stop you from hanging with your friends or something. That's very important to figure out from the start what kind of person you're with. So, because you do want to have trust and everything around it like that. Or like, a very mutual respect and stuff like that. Is there any of the life goals that is gonna be causing any issue? Do you plan on moving? Are you gonna try to do something specific career-wise that might cause any difference? Like, stuff like this is important to also mention. Dare to ask things. Most girls do actually like that the guy takes initiative. But of course, like, not forcing. But that's obvious. When you talk to someone, usually the gut feeling will be important to think about. It is often correct, and you should take it into consideration. People can change a little through self-improvement, but some things are just part of us and how we are. But yeah, sometimes through talking and communication, you can like gradually get more and more similar to each other. You'll actually see this in a lot of relationships. There's a couple of things that one person will copy without thinking from the other person and vice versa. And this is part of getting to know each other better and become more as a one. At the start, you might want to figure out if the person is ready for a relationship, if the person is coming from a relationship, or if it's just something platonic. If someone is coming from a relationship, you might have to consider that some of the feelings might still be left from their other relationship, which can cause problems because maybe it's more difficult for her to actually commit to the relationship 100%. I did hear that the amount of time you're in a relationship, half of that is what time it would approximately take to get over that relationship. You'll say that she was together with someone for 10 years, so that means 5 years of that could be a difficult time for her to let go of the other relationship. Of course, it can still work, but it's good to know that emotionally, she might have a little bit more difficult time to let go. Another thing about that too is that there's something called rebound, and that could also be an issue. So maybe she tries to find someone to just ease the feeling of being lonely, and that maybe it's not gonna be too deep of a relationship. But of course, that is a risk that you could try to do if you still think you have resources for it mentally. But it's a good thing to be aware of. And it's not like the person has any bad feelings about it. It's just that sometimes things are difficult. But yeah, listen to your gut feeling. It is often correct, and you might want to take it into consideration over what's happening. Some things never change. But yeah, through conversation, you might figure out what kind of personality she is. There's like this extrovert and introvert way of being. If you get energy from people or from just the close ones or at home. And there's always like, the morning person and evening person. Everything can be different in how we judge and perceive things. Intuition, gut feeling, thinking, feeling, and the specter of grayscale between it all. Like same thing with dominant or submissive decision making. People are different. If a date or a meetup or chat went bad, try to analyze what happened right before that. Is this something you might want to do differently next time? Remember that no one actually owes you anything. People are their own person, and everyone has their own thoughts and opinions and way of living, and no one owes anything to anyone. But yeah, always a healthy goal in the end is always that both in the relationship is happy. But remember that you can never, ever, ever, ever have 100% match. There is gonna be always differences. But some things are less important than others. And some things are gonna sort themselves out a little bit as you go on. But just be aware that some things are just part of who we are. And this is where the gut feeling comes in. It will tell you a lot of things. But yeah, as you learn more about each other, maybe have a couple of mini arguments, it does open up for more conversation and compromise and to get to know each other more. But try to always keep it very positive and proactive, problem solving, compromising, and with lots of empathy towards each other. You do want to have the other person to be happy, and the same with the other towards you. If both are able to in the end to say to each other, what can I do to make you happy? And of course not doing something that feels wrong, but if you run the habit of saying that to the other person, and the same thing goes for the other person towards you, that's when you have a good start, because it also opens up for communication if something is a little bit, yeah, I'm a bit worried about this or whatever, it is very, very, very important to not stick with the feelings in your head, because nothing will be solved if you stick it into your head and not to talk about it, because that's when the people are not mind readers come in. Like, there's absolutely no chance of the other person to be able to make the situation better if you don't talk about it. But yeah, you do have to talk about it in a very nice way, not intimidating. Just, this is something I'm worried about, and I was wondering if this could be different. Stuff like that. That's very, like, not too scary. Something like that. This is a little bit silly, but I do love it. Have a couple of times in a year where you, for instance, playfully say, this is when you're in a relationship though, this is not when you're dating. But when you're in a relationship, you can say like playfully, let's do a truth corner 5,000 or something like that. It doesn't have to be like exactly that, but it's something silly. And then that time period would then be to talk to each other if anything bothers you or the other. And if you're doing like stuff like that, maybe it feels better to be able to talk about things, but of course, people are different. I'm not gonna tell you that this works better for some people or not. Like, this is just random talk. I don't know anything. But yeah, I do know that communication is important though. Also, hugs are important. So if you're ever in a situation where someone gets a little bit sad, then it's good to either say that you need a hug or give someone a hug, because you do not want to get annoyed or angry, because that's not gonna help anything at all. And be like, oh, I'm a little bit sad, not gonna have a hug, So yeah, hugs are important, and touch. There are actually a couple of things I do want to mention before ending this thing though. And it's actually called the 5 love languages. And this is also actually something that could be brought up when you're in a relationship, and not in the dating period. That's the other one. I never read the book myself because I can't read things because of the dyslexia. But I heard about it, and it's been a little bit of an interesting thing. So I might as well just mention it to you guys as well. But it was kind of interesting from what I heard. So this is just, I don't know anything about the details in the book. So this is just loosely on what the things are about. But it's still interesting though. So the thing is, people are different in what is important to them. And this is very interesting when it comes to when you're in a relationship. Like, this can be not necessarily a romantic relationship as well, but just talk of it like in the relationship. So there's a couple of things that you like to receive. There's a couple of things that's easier to give. So the 5 different things are receiving gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation. I can't say this. Words of affirmation, quality time, and physical touch. So the thing is, some people might like something more than other things. And maybe they don't necessarily get that much out of other things. I can give an example. So imagine you and your partner have each other one bar, and the bar is initially empty. It's not filled up. But there are things in the relationship that can fill this bar up. And if you fill it up, it will gradually go down, but then you have a way of filling it up again as a corporation thing in the relationship. And the thing is, if you imagine this as different values of what you fill in, so say that someone really likes physical touch, then physical touch would be filling more into the bar than what, for instance, gifts is. So the thing is that it's important to know that people are also different in the giving part, as in like what is important to you, what is easier for you to give to others, as in not necessarily gifts, but of the 5 different things. So for examples, the first one, gifts. Yeah, some people might like, roses as a gift, a video game, jewelry, or whatever, right? For acts of service, that's like, oh, yeah, here, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, it's, or like, oh, yeah, I vacuum the kitchen or whatever, stuff like that. So that's act of service. Words of affirmation is when someone says, oh, you look nice today. Oh, you were really good at this. Or like, oh, I really liked your drawing. Things like that. Quality time is what you would think what quality time is as well. So it's just like, spending time together. Maybe eating a dinner. Maybe doing a jog. Maybe take a trip to the mountain, And the last one, physical touch. It's also pretty obvious. Hugs, touches, stuff like that. So everyone will always like anything of this, but there might be different things that you fill that bar up less than other things. So to be able to talk to your partner about what fills up this bar is actually quite helpful. Because say that someone doesn't necessarily like too much, like they like gifts, but it wouldn't really fill up the bar too much, then if the partner gives a lot of gifts, but that's not really a good filler, I don't know how to say it differently, for the other person, then the other one would feel like, oh, I'm doing so much for this person, and I it doesn't help at all, And that's like one of those communication or miscommunication things that is very important to talk about. And also, like, maybe it's good for the other person to be like, oh, I actually noticed that you're doing what's easier for you to do. Because the thing is, some things are easier for other things to do as well. And of course, we can always get better at things. If someone says like, oh, I kind of wish you did this more towards me, you could always try to become a little bit better on that one. But then at the same time, maybe you can ask the other person to get a little bit better on another thing, So it's like, yeah, you try to do the best out of things and communicate and stuff like that. In the end, you are kind of like in a cooperative relationship anyways. You would kind of in the end always try to make the day better for the other person and the opposite as well. So yeah, communication is key. And I guess I'll end it there. But I do want to say good luck to everyone if they want to try to do this, because I know relationship is never gonna be an easy thing. There's always gonna be something, but you know, in the end, it's how it is, and we always try to do the best out of things, and you know, communicate the best we can, compromise the best we can, figure out how everything can be the best as it can be. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a super good day, good evening, or good night. And as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Remember your gut feeling and that empathy and hugs are important. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.